Now, we are going to discuss 9 ways to bring around people without giving offense. Well, in the first card, first principle, it said, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Now, you probably be thinking, we are not criticizing, condemning, and complaining, but people are. Now, how do we handle it? So, these principles will help you to handle situation without having to criticize, condemn, or complain. Because it is said, 9 ways to bring around people without giving offense. Without giving offense means without criticizing, condemning, and complaining. The first principle says, begin with praise and honest appreciation. Let's say you and your colleague have got a misunderstanding, a conflict, wherein you have submitted a report, but your colleague says you have not submitted the report. So, therefore, there is a conflict that's happening, and you're very clear you submitted it, but your colleague is very clear saying that you didn't submit. So, now there is a conflict unresolved. So, at this point in time, you might be tempted to use this grouse against that person. But here, if you want to get the person around without giving offense, begin with praise and honest appreciation. Now, anytime when you see your colleague doing something good, you appreciate because you treat situations in isolation and you don't link that with the past unresolved aspects. So, therefore, it says begin with praise and honest appreciation because at that point in time, that act of your colleague needed appreciation. The next principle says call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Well, your colleague might be under you a subordinate, and you are probably the person who has to take action. Now, here you might be tempted to use your authority, but instead, without giving offenses, call attention to his mistakes indirectly. Tell him, just go back, check your records, and then give me your feedback. I would certainly appreciate that. You have said this without using any harsh words because you called attention to his mistakes indirectly. You tell him, I know if you find the report is there, you will certainly be the first person to accept it. So you called attention to his mistakes indirectly. Then it says, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Well, it takes two people for a conflict. Your contribution might be less, his contribution might be more. Or your contribution might be more and his contribution might be less. But when you own up your part of your mistake, it's a good start. So, therefore, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. So, here it's very easy for you to command and give dictates. But instead, if you want to bring the person around without giving any offense, ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Can you go back and check your records on this particular time and date? And then give me your opinion, please. So here it's very easy to take because you ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. During this unresolved conflict, you find your colleague is doing something very good, something exceptional, and here you praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement and not hold back these praises and appreciation because there's a conflict that's unresolved. And now it says, let the other man save his face. Let's say after all this, your colleague comes back to you and says, yes, I'm very sorry, your report has been submitted and I was able to locate it. Now here, when a person says this, the general tendency of people is to go around and tell the other colleagues, you know, all along, he's been saying that I have not submitted the report and now he's accepted it. Now your colleague was able to say this and own it up because you had dealt with him in the past in a very, very amiable manner without giving any offense. So therefore you created the ground for that person to own up. So now is the time. Instead of painting the person black and blue, you let the other person save his face. You just tell him, don't worry, we all make mistakes. Don't take it to heart. just let's learn from our mistakes and go ahead in life. So here, this is a very civilized way of letting the other person save his face. The next principle says, give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Well, here we might be tempted to use our authority and then call the person a cheat. But here you tell him, we are human beings, we make mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes and go ahead in life. So therefore, you are giving the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Because you tell him you are not capable of cheating anybody. And the last person that person would want to cheat is you. Because you have given the other person a fine reputation to live up to. The next principle says, use encouragement, make the fault seem easy to correct. Now that we all make mistakes, let us learn from our mistakes and then go ahead in life. So here what have you done is, you have minimized the fault and maximized the potential to be doing work in a very effective manner. Because you used encouragement and make the fault seem easy to correct rather than blowing it up and making the person inferior. And now the next principle says, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Well, here is a time where you can use your authority to get work done, but instead, when you say something, whatever might be the situation, unresolved or resolved, you make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. In other words, you make the person want to do what you want him to do. So therefore, here we have shared 9 principles which certainly will help us to bring around people without giving offense. That means we bring around people without having to criticize, condemn or complain. And then we find that here we have maintained our peace and balance and emotional stability, and we have helped the other person to maintain their peace as well. So these are very powerful ways, and if you can imbibe these principles in you, I'm sure you don't have to waste your energy fighting and fretting or criticizing, condemning and complaining. So internalize these principles and be a person who can bring around people without giving offense.